Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, Peter, the moment has arrived when you and I decide the fate of the world. Who has merited our thumbs up and who has merited our thumbs down? All right, I'll go first. The big thumbs down for me of the week was Biden's disgusting speech in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was the worst kind of race baiting, the worst kind of whipping up hatred, resentment, fears, anxieties, and ultimately violence. I mean, you can talk about things that happened 100 years ago, but you talk about it in an intelligent, civilized way. What did we learn from this? You know, how can we, how can we improve? You don't use it in order to whip up hatred and try to suggest that people today are the same ones who committed atrocities 100 years ago. It was an absolutely disgraceful speech by somebody who purports to be the president of the United States.
And on top of it, which was even more odious, is the intelligence community has made this assessment here. Well, can we see that? Can we see the evidence for you to make such a preposterous statement and such a divisive statement? It was really one of the lowest points of any American president saying that. And I don't know, George, I mean, we're not flies on the wall. I mean, who's giving this stuff for him to read? Yeah. Really? I mean, are these people so ideologically obsessed that they can't even begin to comprehend how the general public is going to receive this? You know, in all fairness, I don't remember anything like Trump ever saying anything like that.
He never did.
He said some weird stuff, some crazy stuff, funny stuff, but that's like a dagger into the body politic. And I thought that was so disgusting. And there's no other word for it. All righty.
It's kind of demagoguery,
yeah. I don't know what this one is. A thumbs up, thumbs up, it's compound. The more that Fauci goes down, the more an alternative theory of the lab, very, very implications of which you and I have talked earlier, is the lack of confidence in the ruling elites. This is the story. And you and I said earlier, imaginations, lockdown is real. People want answers why we had to go through all of this and the accountability of those in Washington that made all of the decisions. So I think this is a very important inflection point.
Yes, no, I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah, I don't know whether it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I have a feeling that the elites are still going to be riding high, as is shown by the fact that we've had these disclosures, we've had the vaccination, but apparently, I mean, life just simply goes on in this oppressive way. I mean, these vaccine passports, I think that they are the coming thing, and that it's, no one can stop this engine, essentially, that, you can't travel anywhere without this vaccine passport. You won't be able to get into buildings. You won't be able to go to sports events. You won't be able to go to the theater. I think this is the coming thing because there are so many people who already have a vested interest in this. So instead of saying we got it wrong, we are ashamed of ourselves, they're actually doubling down and putting in more outrageous restrictions. I mean, I think it's an absolute outrageous to create.
What they're doing, they're codifying and institutionalizing a new serfdom, okay? You are not part of the conversation. This is what they've wanted to do all along, and they've picked this one. This one works for them because it works. The fear factor. They want to be able to identify you. See, that's what, because when the masks come off, you won't be able to see who they are. But your passport, then you're on our team or you're not on our team. That's the whole point of this. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. Nothing.
Exactly. No, it's absolutely, it's how to control people's lives. And this has always been their dream. All right. Now I'm going to have a thumbs up. I think I have to give it to Vladimir Putin's bravura performance at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. not so much his speech, but the Q&A that followed. There was a priceless thing that the guy who was doing the questioning several times brought up Belarus, and of course he brought up Roman Protasevich. And at one point, Putin said, "Oh, for heaven's sake, we've got an economic forum here. We've got guests from all over the world. We want to talk about international economics. Why are you wasting my time and wasting everyone's time with talking about Roman Protasevich? I don't know who he is, and I don't care who he is. I mean, you know, can't we talk about something more important?" And this kind of reminds me, remember when he talked about Skripal, it says, you know, I mean, this guy's a lowlife. You're conditioning relations between Russia and the rest of the world about the fate of a lowlife. I mean, you know, he betrayed his country. I mean, I don't care about him. So, and that was.
I mean, the whole thing is that it's not a Russian citizen. It didn't happen in Russia. I mean, why are you bringing it to here? I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, maybe you should jump the border and talk to President Lukashenko. That might be helpful. Yeah. I mean, but see. This is how people are conditioned, is that this is one big blob with no nuance. There's no, you know, it's one broad brush, okay, which you know is absolutely ridiculous. People have no idea how decentralized this part of the world is, okay, really. It really is a lot more decentralized, and there is no one power structure, okay? There are hierarchies all over the place. It's a very complex society, but apparently these journalists just don't have the clue. That's why they ask stupid questions.
But one other thing I would add to that is that I think the next day, Putin opened a memorial to Tsar Alexander III. And this was kind of an interesting, because Tsar Alexander III has had a very bad press from historians, because Alexander II, you know, emancipation of the serfs, he was the liberal, the reformer, and then people thought, you know, he was assassinated, and then his son was, you know, was a repressive reactionary and so on. But, you know, there was another side to the story, which I think what Putin emphasized. You know, he was also someone who was responsible for the Trans-Siberian Railway, huge accomplishment. He was responsible for the economic development of Russia because he got a lot of investment from France. He managed to improve relations with France and Great Britain without alienating Germany. He was a skilled diplomat. And his point was, look, if people didn't like him, it's probably because he was doing something right, which is he was enhancing the power of Russia. And that's true then and true now, which is anyone who's enhancing the power of Russia becomes hated in the Western liberal world. So I just thought that it was an interesting contrast with how Putin treats history with how Biden treats history. In other words, saying, okay, you know, this happened, or, you know, there are certain negative aspects to Alexander III's legacy, but it's also something very positive. I mean, he contributed greatly to Russian development. So I like his approach to history as opposed to Biden and the way the West goes, which is you can't build a statue to anyone now because everyone's a racist, everyone's anti-Semitic, everyone's a xenophobe. You can't even build a statue to Churchill anymore because he's got retrograde views on blacks or Jews or whatever.
These people have no use for history other than to trash it, okay? These people, they live in this endless zero moment of the present, okay? Because all of the past is toxic, which, you know, it's absolutely inane to think that way. How did we get to this present? How can you even generate your own arguments without referencing to the past? I mean, it short circuits itself every step of the way. I'm glad you brought up Putin. I guess it's a thumbs up, and I don't know if it was just for PR. Still reaching out, looking for stability, a stable relationship with the United States. Remarkable here. I hope the Blinkens and the State Department understand, you know, the Russians are entering this possible summit in good faith. Are they? We're going to find out.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think so too. I think that Russia's taking a very measured approach, which is, okay, you want to meet, you want to improve relations. Let's see what you're proposing. Saying, you know, we never say no to anyone who wants to apparently improve relations with us, but we're not going to put up with lectures. We're not going to put up with interference in our affairs. and we're not going to put up with accusations of all sorts of nonsense that we have no connection whatsoever with. So I think they're taking a very measured approach. And obviously, we're going to see what happens when Biden and company show up. I don't think that they will take a measured approach.
And what happens in Belarus stays in Belarus.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Exactly. I mean, that's what the point. Belarus, you know, what's Belarus to do with us? What's Georgia got to do with us? You know, stop bringing up all these issues with us.
Okay, you're up.
Yeah, so my next thumbs down was the Department of Homeland Security issuing yet another warning about imminent violence from white supremacists on the anniversary of the Tulsa riots and Biden's speech. This is, I think, about the third or fourth warning issued by the DHS about imminent violence perpetrated by these white supremacists. Not once has any of this materialized, but they're continually using this in order to whip up hysteria, fear among the public. And no one, again, holds them to account. Hey, that's about the fourth warning you've issued, and not one person showed up. So I mean, DHS will say, well, that's because we issued a warning. That's why they didn't show up. Well, this is a classic case when Americans sort of accuse somebody of doing something. Then when it doesn't happen, that's because we warned him off, and Putin didn't do what he said he was going to do because we warned him off. No, he was never going to do it. So in the same way, no one was ever going to show up at Tulsa. No one was going to riot. I mean, you know, no one really gives a damn about Tulsa. It was 100 years ago. It's completely invented by the Democrats. So, you know, again, big thumbs down for the DHS. They're playing this stupid game, probably because they think that it's a way of getting more money, particularly since the Democrats control both houses.
And it's a way to keep their coalition together as the infrastructure bill is going nowhere, as everything else is going nowhere. Okay, this is what they double down on this fear mongering and demanding that you find someone to hate. Okay, all right. Kind of a variation on what you just said. A huge thumbs down on the U.S. State Department putting the gay pride flag out on American embassies abroad, and Black Lives Matter, which is essentially a political party. This is completely unacceptable, okay? Completely unacceptable. As it is an internal affair that is not representative of all of America in their embassies and missions around the world. I think it's just unconscionable they do this. This, again, is divisive. It is in your face. It's insulting. It just almost leaves me speechless. Okay, and that takes a lot. As everyone knows.
I quite agree. I mean, and as we've talked about before, when you push this gay agenda, you are antagonizing an awful lot of countries in the world. You know, obviously countries in Asia, countries in Africa, but even in countries in Europe who don't subscribe to this agenda. And when it comes to Black Lives Matter, as you said, it's a political movement, and you know, people know something about George Floyd. They know something about Black Lives Matter, and says, well, why exactly are we supposed to pay obeisance to it? And you can even see it when there are football matches and the English clubs play football matches abroad, and the English players all take the knee and the crowd starts booing. So, you know, for the rest of the world, they start booing because they know, well, why are you taking the knee to Black? What the hell's that? You know,
why do we care about their politics? We went there to watch a football game.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. And I mean, they might try to pull this stunt during the Olympic Games, even though they've been warned, no political statements. But I'm sure that some of the more radical athletes are going to pull this stunt there. You know, it's asking for trouble, and it just shows that America's just it's really not very good at leading the world. This is not how you lead the world. This is how you antagonize the world.
You can't lead when you're divided at home, okay? And it's only going to get worse. And the U.S. is not respected, and it's because of this ridiculous ideological attempts to show virtue, that we're virtuous, when at the same time most people don't understand what the internal dynamics of what's going on in the country. It makes the U.S. look very unstable.
Right. Yeah. Is it me? Okay. the, the next thing is again, the social media. So we know about the social media announced today. Facebook announced, not today, earlier this week, that they're going to ban Trump for, oh, you got, okay. Well, there's more to say. Okay, Trump's been banned for 2 years. Now, it just seems so ridiculous. And then we also have now Twitter that has kicked off Naomi Wolf, who you may remember from. Oh, you've got that as well.
No. I'm just. I mean, because you and I have a certain idea about Naomi Wolf. The fact that she's being kicked off of social media is astounding.
Exactly, because that was okay when she was a kind of a feminist icon, when she was advising Al Gore in the 2000 election, but she's been an anti-vaccine person. Again, entirely on the basis of her views. People are entitled to their views. People are entitled to have all sorts of views about vaccines. It's understandable that you should have opinions about something that's being injected into your body. I mean, what is wrong with that? Nonetheless, Twitter has thrown this up. And you would think that during this week, when we have found out that Facebook and Twitter had got this whole thing wrong about China and had been deplatforming and kicking people off when they were actually raising very good questions, very pertinent questions about the origins of COVID, that they have the insolence to say, well, I don't think Trump merits a place on Facebook, violating our terms of service.
Yeah, because the Facebook Politburo says so. Right. Okay, that's exactly what. This whole issue with Naomi Wolf is just so astounding to me, because she's been very much part of our intellectual experience in our lives. And I have to admit that I very rarely agreed with her. Right. However, she is a very articulate, extremely smart person. Yep. I think a good faith person on top of it. And she was a rich contribution to conversations on the most important issues of the day. You can disagree with someone, but they can make you a better person, okay? I'm really... and then the Politburo says that Trump can't come on, but then that Naomi Wolf, a cultural icon, love her or hate her, made such an amazing contributions to our public discourse, and they have the gall. I mean, these are just boneheads. I mean,
I say this during the week when we find out that they basically behaved outrageously about deplatforming people who were absolutely right in what they were saying about COVID. So now they get to decide, as if they still continue to decide who is entitled to have a say, who's not entitled to have a say. And leave aside all the questions about what they did with Hunter Biden and the way they inserted themselves into the election by refusing to run the stories about Hunter Biden, even as they were running stories of making ridiculous accusations like the laptop was manufactured by Putin. That was okay. That didn't violate their terms of service.
What was the phrase? I hope I don't get it wrong. The Soviet phrase, the future is certain. It's the past that's always changing. Something to that effect.
I think the past is something like that. The past is less predictable than the future. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And that's exactly where we live right now. Okay, where banning people, shadow banning people, demonetization, and it's like, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. Okay, never mind, and let's move forward to the radiant future. That's exactly what they're doing here. Again, it goes back to my mantra, is that the lack of confidence in these elites, I mean, at every step of the way. And I still strongly believe that there has to be a reckoning why they wrecked the economy for so many people and all the derivative effects that entails here. I remember saying to you, we were talking about what 2021 was going to be like. And I said, I think it's just going to be exactly like 2020. It's going to be a long year of 2020. And it's proving
long 2020.
The long 2020.
That's not a bad one there. The long 2020. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Facebook has their way, it's going to 2020 is going to last until 2023.
I think so. Yeah.
It shows doesn't it show you how afraid they are? How meek and fragile they are?
Yeah. No,
Okay, and you and I chronicled the Trump years thoroughly, and the times that he would say something was so outrageous. Okay, and it was outrageous. Was it a lie? That's a matter of perspective. Okay, but see, the best, the only way you can insulate yourself from bad feelings
right.
is to have silence. That is the lack, that shows a lack of maturity.
But the guy, the man won 75 million votes. This isn't some crackpot. Well, you know, we deplatformed some crackpot. We deplatformed, I don't know, Alex Jones or somebody. This is somebody who won 75 million votes. And you treat him as a crackpot. I mean, what a completely irresponsible thing to do. I mean, we were talking earlier about the Soviets and what they did to Solzhenitsyn. You say, well, this is a person who's a great writer. He has an extensive following within the Soviet Union. People are reading his books, and then you treat him as a pariah. You kick him out of the country. I mean, it was ridiculous. But this is even more outrageous. This is a former president. I mean, he was a president just a few months ago. 75 million people voted for him, and you treat him as if he's some moral pariah.
Well, we can end on this note here. Remember the Beatles? Back in the U.S., back in the U.S., back in the USSR.
Right.
Wow, how prophetic they were. They wrote that in what, 1967, 68?
Something like that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Actually, I've got a couple of other. Do you have anything else? Or
go ahead, real quick. Go ahead.
All right. I've also got the Denmark has declared that it will not permit Russian football fans to enter the country to watch the Denmark-Russia World Cup match, I think later this month, because although Russians may have had the Sputnik vaccine, the Sputnik is not recognized by the European authorities as a bona fide vaccine. So you may have paid to watch this match. Tough luck, Ivan, you're not coming into the country. Now, Denmark says this is not a political step. Who the hell is going to believe that this is not typical? This is not political. Of course, it's political. You're telling Russians who have actually bought tickets to watch this match, you can't come in, even though you can show that you've been vaccinated, because this vaccine is not accepted by the
Oh yeah, and the EU's experience with the vaccine is stellar.
A negative test. In other words, a negative PCR test is still not good enough. They're still not going to be allowed into the country.
Of course, it's not political.
Not political, no.
You have another one?
Yeah, okay, but this will be a very quick one. And that is the Pentagon announced the other day that during 2020, a grand total of 23 civilians were killed by the United States. Wonderful, rejoicing, and so on. Now, this is an absolute joke when the Pentagon makes these estimates, because in the first place, the Pentagon does not accept civilian casualties until the Pentagon, has actually established that these were indeed civilian casualties. But since the Pentagon always assumes that anyone whom it strikes is a terrorist, by definition, it never hits civilians. So it's a wonderful circular argument in which, and it regularly comes along and says, yep, 23, pretty good. We have a good record. This is ridiculous. So, you come along with this when you don't even accept any proper counting of civilian casualties. And that's leave aside all of the sanctions and everything else that he keeps in place, and the civilian casualties that result as a result of sanctions. But even on this narrow issue of how many civilians it killed, it provides bogus statistics.
Which wouldn't you just love to see the Pentagon audited? Because it never will be. Okay, I mean, when you have like fighter jets, having with green wings and a tail and stuff like that, when the Pentagon is the biggest polluter in the world, there's no competition for how much they pollute the world. But of course, they'll have green wings. Okay, I mean. That's how these people think in high places here, George. Okay, 23, great job.
Yeah, exactly. 2 thumbs up for the Pentagon.
Think about the budget to civilian death ratio. I mean, I'm sure there's something like that out there, and they're real proud of that. Okay, and I'm sure MSNBC and CNN, good going, guys.
Exactly. Men and that's it. Boy, how humane. Yeah. All right, Peter. That was our thumbs ups and thumbs down for the week. So some people can breathe easy, but you have to be on your toes.
And we're on Locals. Go to thegaggle.locals.com. Any help you can give us, much appreciated.
Absolutely. Very much appreciated. We're also on Rumble. Look us up on Rumble. And remember, if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.